Welcome back. In this video, we're going to add a decimal point because, well, we could of course have this calculator which can only work with whole numbers, but how about having a decimal point here at the bottom left, which then allows us to use some proper float calculations as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this button 0 here, and I'm gonna add just another one before that. So this one will be button dot. Okay, and then we can go ahead and give it a different text. I'm just going to use the point here or dot, and let's add a string like so. Okay, so now accordingly they all both have to have a weight of 1 now, otherwise it would look a little awkward. So here we have the 0, we have the dot. Now you could of course change the order if you want to, but I think that's fine as we have them now. Now accordingly we will need to have a specific method that will take care of what should happen once we click on a decimal point. And I'm going to create a method here called onDecimalPoint. So once we click on it, we will get a view as the parameters here. And now once we click on it, I want to execute something. Now, the important part is that this should only work if the last entry that we had was not a dot, because if we already had a dot, I don't want to use another dot. Okay, so that's really important here. And in order to find that out, I will require another variable, or actually two variables here. So one of them will be whether the last one was numeric, and the other one will be whether the last one was a dot. So here var last numeric, which will be of type Boolean, and I'm going to set that to false. And then the other one will be last dot, which will be of type Boolean as well. And we could, of course, just leave this colon Boolean out here. It would work all the same. But that's basically how I want to start this thing. Because if it was a number that was pressed, I want to treat this dot differently than if there was a dot that was pressed. Because if there was a dot, I don't want to be able to create another dot. Otherwise, we would have 3.0, for example. So that's what we want to avoid. And in order to avoid that, what we can do is we can use an if statement here that will help us with that. So here we can check if the last numeric is true and it's not a dot, so not last dot. So here you see if last numeric is true and at the same time it's not last dot, then I want to execute some code. And that is this exclamation mark here, which makes sure that this is not last dot. So if last dot is not true, which means it's false, only then this code will be executed here in those curly brackets. So what do we want to do here? Well, then I just want to append a dot. That's it. That's as simple as that. And at the same time, if that happened, I need to make sure that the last numeric is going to be false, because otherwise it would never change, right? The same goes for last dot. That needs to be true now, because now the last entry that we had into our TV input was in fact a dot. So what we're using here are flags. Okay, so this is just a flag. Last numeric and last dot, they are flags which help us to know if something is currently active or inactive, so to speak. Okay, so now at this point, let's go ahead and use this onDecimalPoint. So I'm going to copy it from here. I'm going to go over and assign that to my button dot ID here, so to this button. And once it is pressed, I will use the onDecimalPoint here and we'll execute it. Now that we have assigned it here, and if we were to test it, we would notice that it still doesn't work. Why would that happen? So let's see. This button just doesn't do anything. Is it something wrong with this method? Well, actually, no. The method itself is fine. You see, it's connected and it's running and all is good. But the problem is that last numeric is never set to true. And we are setting it to false here. And this means that this if statement is always going to be false, so this code will never be executed. So we need to make sure that once we pressed on a digit, that our last numeric will be set to true. And at the same time, our last dot will also be set to false, because now it's not a dot anymore that we had entered last, but it was a number. So let's run it again. So 0.0. And you see, now I can still go on and on and on to add zeros. So I could add IPs here, but that is not the point for now. So that's fine for now. We're going to fix that later on. But at least we do have the capability of adding dots, but not multiple dots after another. So that's it for this video. See you in the next one.